Welcome to Visordown, welcome to southern Spain, welcome to the launch of Yamaha's new R9. We are just outside Jerez. It's literally about 2 miles behind my lovely cameraman, but it's currently covered in salt, mud and water. Because last night we had a monumental biblical storm that's completely ruined the track. So at the moment, we're just deciding whether we're going to do a road ride, a track ride and work out what the plan is. But that does give me enough time to give you a little rundown of the new R9. So for me, this is a really exciting new class, one that I'm really fond of. Yes, the big 220 horsepower superbikes are getting all the headlines, but for me, I love this kind of middleweight traditional supersport class that is fastly gaining lots of interest. The R9 has already taken a victory at Phillip Island in World Supersport, and that category has got some exciting bikes from traditionals like the ZX6 and the CBR6, the MV, the Triumph, and now the R9, not forgetting the V2 from Ducati. So let me run you through what this is as a road bike. So in the UK, this is going to be 12,250. It's going to be arriving in April. It obviously uses the CP3 engine that we've seen before in the MT09, because if you use the same engine, you don't have to go through all the regulations of Euro 5+. So it is the same power, same torque as the MT09, which means it's 117 horsepower at 10,000 RPM. Now with the R3 and the R7, what Yamaha essentially do is have a naked version, MT03, MT07, make an R3 and R7 by putting on some stylish bodywork and leaving the chassis alone. But the R9 is different. So this does not have the chassis from the MT09. It's a completely different chassis. And the reason for that is they wanted to change how the chassis would feel and the flex. To put that very simply, they've kind of made the chassis a bit lighter and give it more feel and more flex. And if you want to make that really simple, imagine having a bit of wood and drilling a few holes in it. If you put the holes in it, the wood flexes a little bit more. And that's, in a very basic, broad term, what they've done. In terms of suspension, KYB, front and rear, fully adjustable as you would expect from Yamaha for a track-biased R9. The wheelbase is a little bit shorter than the MT09, the weight is a lot less, so Yamaha are quoting 195 kilograms wet, 178 kilograms dry, which puts it there or thereabouts comparable to Ducati's V2 that they claimed was the lightest bike in class. But there's going to be there or damn it 1 or 2 kilograms in between. In terms of rider aids, as you'd expect, a 6-axis IMU, all controlled via the big 5-inch TFT clocks. So we've got 3 modes, which are Sport, Street and Rain, and that will give us traction control, brake control, slide control, engine braking control, and we've got those big Brembo style emmers on the front with cornering ABS. Now obviously all these modes can be trimmed to suit whether you're riding on the road or whether you're riding on track, whether you're on slicks or whether you're riding on wets, and hopefully tomorrow we're going to get the opportunity to play about with those modes, and hopefully we'll get to try the standard treaded tyres from Bridgestone and maybe some slicks if we get the chance to ride on track. In terms of looks and appeal, Yamaha claim this is the most aerodynamic bike in their range. They also claim that it's not as radical as the R6 was, which is still available just as a track bike, but it's not as relaxed as the R7 that I rode in Andalusia a few years ago, a bike that I really liked. So hopefully when we get to ride it on track and road tomorrow, we'll be able to see how this riding position is. But they do claim it's the most aerodynamic Yamaha they've ever produced, even more than the Yamaha R1, which is sadly being phased out in many parts of the world. Fingers crossed, tomorrow we can get out on either the track or the road, and I'll update this video later with some riding impressions, and hopefully it'll be either a thumbs up or maybe a thumbs down. In part 2 of our Visordown review, we've actually got to ride the bike. But before I go into the riding impressions, I've got to say, what an unbelievable job Yamaha, Bridgestone and the whole organisation have done, because Jerez was completely washed out and we've moved over to the track in Seville, and that's given us the opportunity to ride the bike in the standard form with the V11 tyres. All Yamaha have done is quickly shift over the race shift, so I've got race shift rather than road shift, and tweak the suspension just a little. It's not a million miles off showroom settings. We've also got no ABS, so it's like a track setup with no ABS. First impressions when you get on the bike, it feels very much like the R6 to me. The bars are quite close in. The fuel tank feels familiar, the familiar gills, the familiar feeling. It does feel very R6-like, but then when you're out on track, You definitely feel that MT-09, that familiar engine, that 117 horsepower, that ease of use and familiarity. It's nice and smooth, nice and progressive, easy to ride. And then when you start upping the pace, you start to enjoy the chassis and the handling, and we can start to push it. First impressions when you start pushing is all about the front end. It's very much a front end feeling bike. Very much like the R6 was, and a lot of great Yamahas have been over the years. You start to trust the front end, even though we are on road tyres, not race slicks. With that feeling, you feel confident to push. You can feel confident to hold on to the brakes. You feel confident to get the bike to steer into the corner. Coming out the corner, nice and progressive, lovely power, nice fueling, nice feeling. I've only got it on the Power 2 mode, not Power 1. A lot of people have gone for that, but when I've tried that on the R1 and other bikes, it's a bit too snappy, so I've left it in Power 2. Also turned off the lift control, but left the other rider settings as recommended, which is the slide and traction control. It's 117 horsepower quoted, so you're probably looking at 110-ish at the back wheel. But when you come up to the corner, when you come up to the crest, it feels fast when you hit the brakes. It kind of lures you into this false sense of security that I'm all really friendly and user friendly, but I am actually going at quite a decent pace. It is a lot faster when you approach the corners than you expect. Mid corner, it's really nice. You've got a big fuel tank. For me, the bars are a little bit narrow. Personally, I just like to ride with my bars further out. I always have done, and that's just a personal thing. But I think a lot of people are going to prefer the smaller inward bars that make it feel lighter and more chuckable. The last section of this track is kind of like Hall bends at Cadwell. It's all second gear, left, right, left, right, left, right. Really highlights how well the bike changes direction, and it changes direction phenomenally well. We can't help but compare it to the Ducati that we rode here just 2 weeks ago, and the Ducati was exceptional through that section, really light steering, and I thought there'd be quite a significant difference between the two bikes, but there really isn't. The Yamaha really flies through that section really easily. In terms of negatives, the brakes are really strong, but for me, just a fraction spongy when you're towards the limit. But I think a lot of that is the compound of the Bridgestone on the front, so I can feel the sidewall slightly collapsing when I'm braking really heavy. I think putting some slicks on this bike, like we did with the Ducati previously, will make a vast difference. In terms of lap times, we've got a full TFT 5-inch dash here. We've got the lap timer pretty active. We can't really compare like for like because the Ducati was on World Super Sport slicks on Pirellis, and we had 20 degrees of sunshine, and today we're on road tyres and it's a little bit damp in places, so we can't push. But the gap seems to be between 2 and 3 seconds between the bikes, which is what I kind of would expect for slicks in great conditions. So this bike with slicks and in great conditions would pull that gap down a little bit closer. In terms of engine, it is user friendly, it is really smooth, but it's a little bit, you kind of run out of revs a few times. You kind of hit the limiter, which I think it's me possibly asking a little bit too much of this bike. I'm pushing hard, thinking it's like an R6, and thinking I've got that over rev to 14,000, where I'm hitting the rev limiter at 10.5, and there's a few corners where I'm between third and fourth gear. But if we could make this bike rev a few thousand RPM more and move the bars out a little bit wider, it would be a really impressive track tool. And we've got to remember, it's just over £12,000 in the UK. I can see a lot of inexperienced riders really enjoying the R9 because as it is so easy to ride, it's quite physical, it's quite big, it's not a little toy bike. It's only when you start to push towards those limits, when you brake really heavy and you slide forward in the tank, when the brakes feel a little bit spongy, or when you're hitting the limiter coming out of corners. But all those things can be changed. We can change the gearing, we can add a few more RPM with a full exhaust and still have some change left over because it's only 12,500. The plan was to ride the bike on the road, but we've not had the opportunity because of the weather, and it's only been a track test, but it's been a track test on road tyres on the bikes that you're going to buy in the UK. So that's really important, and it does show how good this is going to be as a road bike. It feels nice and smooth, it feels very easy to ride. The switchgear is, as you'd expect, similar to the XSR 900 and other bikes in this range, so it'll take a little bit of getting used to. But for me, I didn't honestly think it would be as good as it is on track. I thought it would be more of a road bike than a race bike, but what it feels like is more like an R6, but with a user-friendly engine. And that user-friendly engine should work on the road, and the ergonomics are not as radical on the R6, so that should work on the road. And the suspension is not a million miles out compared to stock, and it's coping really well with the bumps here, because this track is really bumpy offline. Better than I was expecting, faster than I was expecting, racier than I was expecting. Almost lures you into this, it's going to be like an R6, but it's not quite an R6 because it's got more torque and it's easier to ride. I just wish I had a few more RPM, a little bit stronger on the brakes, and it would be a phenomenal track bike. So thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the kind of mixed review. Can't wait to ride it on the road. Can't wait to ride it on slicks. And if you're at a track like Cadwell, Alton, this bike is going to be an absolute hoot. But well done Yamaha, well done Bridgestone. To move a launch, it's the first time I've ever seen it happen. Incredible effort. I'm glad you made it.